Tangi Kompan Yuto. And let's do the 4 limitless contemplations. May all beings have happiness and create the causes of happiness. May they all be free from suffering and creating the causes of suffering. May they find that noble happiness which can never be tainted by suffering. May they attain universal, impartial compassion, free of worldly bias towards friends and enemies. Sem jendam je dewatang dewe tang dumpajitik, dungal tang dungal chichu tang trawajitik, dungal mepe dewa tampatang mindrawajitik, nering chaktang ni tang trawe tang nong chempola ni pajuchik. So good morning, everybody. It's lovely to see you. Those that can get on with all this load shedding, it's really hard. Okay. But today, I'm going to give you a short heart meaning of Vajrayana practice. And the thing is, I really want this. I'd like it to be a discussion because I really think that you need to, hello, man, I just saw you now. I really think you need to understand what you're doing when you're doing the practices. It's very, very, very important. And this is just, well, if Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche says, this is just my projection, my rubbish, then how much more do I go? This is just my projection, my rubbish, okay? I've got to say that. But it's my heartfelt feelings about Vajrayana and what it is, because I think when I looked back to all my notes, and if any of you want to get my previous teachings on Vajrayana, which were really, 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 oh good, Boone, from Vajrayana, which were really with quotes and quoting all the masters, just go back, ask Nadine to send it so that you can look at it. But this is not for that. It is for me to give you what I have learned. So when I looked right through all my notes of lectures that I've given over many, many years, I thought to myself, it's interesting because now I see this completely differently. I look differently at it. I understand it differently. And that's what I want you to do. If today nothing gets turned around inside you, then I'm doing a really poor job. So it's up to you to say, what do you mean? What is this? How does this work? That'll be a much better proposition for me, that you really are learning how this all is. Because it's very interesting to see with Vajrayana or tantric practice that as the years go by, when I think of myself, when I got my first empowerments many years ago, and I was sitting there and I knew nothing. Do you remember, Patricia, when we had that? I knew absolutely nothing. And then I learned the practices, did them because I was obedient and everything. But I really didn't understand what I was doing. I really didn't understand what is this deity practice. I mean, every single practice, even your Vajrasattva practice that you do in the Nondra, that is a Vajrayana practice. Every deity practice, the Guru Yoga, which a lot of you do very quickly, is a very important Vajrayana practice. Now, today, I want to give you a lot from 2 beings that I've been looking at very, very deeply in Vajrayana. The one is Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche, who was teaching Vajrayana, and you can get that teaching if you want to. It's very interesting. It's on YouTube. He was teaching Vajrayana to a huge mixed group in Berlin. Okay, it was one of Sogyal Rinpoche's centers, Rigpa centers, but there were people from all over the world, and they had great questions and challenges for him. They don't sit still, that group. They are real Western. They need to know everything, and they don't take anything lying down, and they've had some trauma with Sogyal Rinpoche. So they ask him directly. And he said his talk was called Vajrayana for modern times. That was the talk was called. And he said, it's very suitable for modern times. He said, because critical thinking is so pertinent to the modern age. You see it in our kids who always know everything about technology. And he said, that's why Vajrayana is so important to look at, because if you understand what you're trying to do. But what he did say, which was so very, and I've listened to it a couple of times, what he did say was that we get all these practices today, whereas if you look back in all of Buddhism, and particularly in, well, Tibetan Buddhism, when people got a Vajrayana practice, let's say they got Chenrezi practice, Vajrayogini practice, Tara practice, it came from guru to disciple, and it was secret, and it was sacred. And like when I've read stories, you know, they lived in the cave next door to the master. So the master would be watching them all the time, and that was their Vajrayana guru. I mean, we don't have anything like that here, unfortunately. And he said, actually, all the teaching in Vajrayana should be secret. It should not be done in public. He said, anyway, the cat is out of the bag. So we're in that world, and it is what it is, and we've got to try and make a most of it. But he did say in his teaching, don't quote me wrongly, because what happens is people hear their own projection of what he's saying, and then they go out. So he says, I did a 19-page lecture for you for this group today, for this talk today. He says, and I get misquoted, it was online or whatever the case is, and I get misquoted about it all the time. And he said, then I put 2 words on my Facebook, just 2, and those got misquoted. Okay, so when you look at that, you actually begin to understand this is a very sacred, secret practice. But because it came to the West, and because everything happened in Tibet, it's now become common knowledge. So if you want to go and do an empowerment with someone, you can just rock up and go and do it. You couldn't do that in the old days. And it's really important to understand this. And so his is the one I want to give you some of his stuff on what he says about it. And then I've been studying this guy, James Lowe, and he does a commentary on Vajrayana practice in his book called Being Guru Rinpoche. So he gives the whole Vajrayana practice of being Guru Rinpoche. And he got crazy training from his guru. His guru's name was Chimed Riksim Lama. He was called C.R. Lama, okay? And both of them are totally unconventional. Where anything goes, he says, just don't be stuck. Now, most of us are stuck when it comes to deity practice. All of us are stuck, in fact, not most of us. We get stuck because we don't really know what we're doing. And he says, Vajrayana is to get us unstuck. I mean, he uses in his book the F word whenever he wants to. He uses anything. He's a completely liberated, English-speaking guy. And his Lama is even more crazy, okay? So he learned from him, his Lama would be there. And something like Chogyam Trungpa, he was also known as giving crazy wisdom. And, he gave it over. Now, a lot of you may say, but how come? I mean, we're not living in a crazy world, or we are, but, we're not living in a world where people are crazy and that kind of thing. They get put in a mental asylum. But let's try and understand what this is, because this will give you the best understanding. So taking it from James Lowe, he says, Vajrayana is to get us unstuck. Okay, he says Tantra at its root is about ecstasy. Now, I defy that because most of us don't get ecstasy when we're doing the practice. And what is ecstasy? What does the word ecstasy come from? He says it comes from ekstatus. It's probably a German word or a Latin word, ekstatus. And what does it mean? It means a stepping out of yourself, a stepping out of yourself. So vital. If you don't remember anything from our talk today, remember that. He says, when you step out of your role, when I step out of my role as Melanie, and all of you better be on your aware that I could go to crazy lamas, okay, very easily, and I could be perfectly comfortable, much more comfortable there than I am with all the rules and regulations and the finger pointing. I mean, as I always say to Lamanyeshi when he says, will you be a nun in your next life? I go, never. But I would be a wild yogini on a tiger. That I'm prepared to be. You know? So the thing is that it is a certain crazy thing. And when you recognize who you are, we visualize ourselves as these different deities. It's nothing external. We visualize ourselves as these deities. And what happens to us? We move out of our ordinary sense of self. Out of our ordinary sense of self, okay? It's really very important for all of you to understand that and to see when we move out of our ordinary self. Now, I don't want to do notes and things, but there is something I just have to read to you because it's so fascinating, okay? What does it mean, moving out of your ordinary sense of self? What does it mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means. With this practice, we look in the mirror and we see Vajrasattva. We don't see Melanie, we see Vajrasattva, our true nature. Now, how do we get to see Vajrasattva, Chenrezig, whoever it is that we're looking at? How do we get to see it? He says, Tantra or Vajrayana is theater. Theater. Okay? He says, the more you enter the theater, the more impact. He says, all of life is theater. Our drama, because we're in the theater even in our day-to-day life, our drama of being Melanie is disturbed by entering the drama of being Vajrasattva. So what you're doing is, you're going from this, which is an absolute drama, to the drama of Vajrasattva, or the drama of Chenrezig, or the drama of whatever practice you are doing, Tara, whatever. And he says, so he gives this beautiful thing, which I really photocopied and put for you, because this really makes you understand. So sorry that I'm reading, but it still comes definitely from my heart. So he says, you may know the play Hamlet by Shakespeare. I don't know how many of you did Hamlet in Shakespeare, and this is important. He says, in this play, use is made of the theme of the play within the play within the play, okay? It's something you find in many kinds of drama, but in this play, he says, it's really nicely illustrated. So he tells the story of Hamlet, and this is really important for all of you because you see it. He says, briefly, the beloved father of Hamlet has died, and he's been poisoned. Hamlet is sure that his mother has arranged the poisoning of his father because she is in love with someone else. The family is dysfunctional. Hamlet himself is falling apart at the seams, okay? He's acting mad. He's shouting at people, and his mother keeps saying, oh, calm down, life's changed, never mind, you'll get over it. But he says, something is rotten here. Something smells very bad. And then he says, when some theater players come to the castle, Hamlet speaks to them, and he writes a little play for them to perform. Now, this is important because they're going to perform a play in the play. And it's so important for all of you to understand this for Vajrayana. Okay, so the queen, to perform in which the king in his play is poisoned. He's going to do this. So what happens is the queen and the new king are sitting watching this play. And suddenly the new king gets very angry and disturbed. What is this? He feels very insulted. Hamlet is looking at him and he's going, ha ha, now we see, because he knows they're very guilty of poisoning his father. So inside this play by Shakespeare, we have a play in which the mother and father are trying to pretend that nothing has happened. And then the third play, this dramatic in action, shows the falsity of the second play and brings dramatic life to the first play. Because actually he's telling the truth, but he's putting it in a play. And then when it's in a play, now the king and queen are feeling very bad because they know they poisoned the previous king, his father. And he's made this play within a play. Now, this is so important for all of you to understand for Vajrayana practice. Why? Because in order for the drama to work when you're doing Vajrayana practice, in order for the drama to work, you have to believe in it. You have to enter into the drama, okay? The theater of the puja, of the sadhana, of the practice you're doing takes you out of yourself. Why would it want to take you out of yourself? None of you have murdered anybody. It takes you out of yourself in order to return to yourself, not the self that is making a drama, in order for you to return to who you really are. Okay, that's what it's about. And faith is very important here, because faith, when you've really got faith, brings about a profound psycho-spiritual transformation, because faith is an attitude that allows possibilities to come alive, and you can see yourself in a new way. Now, I think you'll all agree, and you can butt in with pleasure, that that's a really lovely way of looking at Vajrayana practice, because we are creating a play, but none of us even know we're creating a play. We're creating a drama. But the irony of this drama is what we're creating is really the truth. And who we are in this life is really a lie. It's just a temporary, transient, little role that we're playing in this life. Now, when you begin to understand that, then you really, really begin to understand what the Vajrayana practice is really all about. Because once you can understand that, then you can let go of the grasping and attachment to the drama of this life, the drama of Melanie, the drama of Bernice, the drama of Tatiana. That drama, doesn't mean you don't do your responsibilities in that drama. But once you enter the drama of the puja, of the practice, then you leave behind that other drama. And then when you've finished the practice, then you actually go back. Once you finish the practice, you go back to being yourself, but then you carry the practice into your life. So if I'm doing Tara, when I'm finished doing Tara, if I'm no longer Tara, and that was just the drama, but that's the drama I'm making myself. If I'm no longer Tara, in other words, if I finish my Tara practice in the morning, and then I go into life, and now I'm Melanie, and now I'm making all the same blunders and the same rubbish that I do in my life and everything. Why am I not going into my drama, carrying the drama of Tara, so the Tara in me can start responding differently to everything around me? Can you all understand what I'm saying? Does anyone want to say anything before I go on with a lot of teaching. But you know what, guys? I'm not going to rush this, okay? Because if I look, I just made points so that I could teach on them. But there's so much here. There's so much. And I do not want to do this quickly. I want you to feel free to ask what you need to ask and to stop me along the way so that you really get what I'm trying to say. Anybody want to comment or say anything? Sure. So do you just accept what I'm saying? Boone, when you nod your head, what are you saying? What sense do you make out of it?
Okay, so what I'm getting is that I often, after I've finished doing any of the practices, I often feel it remains with me because if I do get, and I do get quite a number of calls, I automatically am able to see it from a different perspective. And I've started also doing quite a lot of medicine Buddha because of stuff that's been happening around me. And I'm able to see things differently and I don't get involved in it. If it's not, it doesn't drag me down. It used to drag me down. But the other thing that I really love, and for me, it's the visualization of all my pictures. I know you say blah, 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 but I love having the full visualization in front of me. So as far as I use a lot of photos, pictures, examples, and it's part of in the practice that I'm doing. I mean, you must
as
see
long as you know that what you're looking at is you, not outside of you. As long as you know that this is not someone you're worshipping, like in the Hindu, they worship.
Yeah.
This is something which is really, really relevant to you. It's your mandala of your heart. That's who you are. That's what's so important. Okay. But also the fact that you, sorry, I interrupted you. Go on, please.
No, it's fine. What actually happened is I often feel like I'm saying stuff and it's not things that I would normally say. I'm different.
Very good. Very good. If you're doing that, it means you're starting to make the changes that you need to. You see, that's what is so important for all of you, that when you've done this practice, you feel completely different. You know, Gail, even handling a death, you know, suddenly you're standing in the family and people are saying things and you're not hooked down on it in any way or any form. You can actually see everything for what it is. And you can see that this poor woman was, you know, had a long illness, but hopefully all her karmic things were cleaned up, you know, during that and everything. And now she's free. And now you can rejoice that she's actually free and she's gone through this long illness and everything. So it's like you have a different attitude to everything, absolutely everything, even everything that's happening in South Africa now, which is so important because I know people are really scared and worried and everything else. So that's really good, Boone. Anyone else?
Well, I was going to say, I must, since I've been involved in Buddha practice, I actually do view life from a very different perspective. And I'm in it, but not of it, if you know what I mean. And I'm kind of, I feel kind of detached about most things, actually. And I'm viewing it as if I'm viewing a movie. And like you've always said, you know, this is your story to write, and you can write it however you like. And that's how my mind is working. And it's actually quite a comforting feeling.
Very comforting. It's very, very comforting, truly. And, you know, I think that's excellent. Tate, did you want to say something?
Yes, Melanie, I think that your discussion with Bern sort of clarified it a little bit for me. I don't have a strong affinity with deities. Okay, I prefer a more direct, simpler way of reaching inside. And I think that what you're saying is that that's also okay.
It's really okay. But you see, when you really study Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche, you realize straight away that the word deity is actually non-existent in Buddha. You know, it's non-existent. There isn't actually a deity. But the thing is, because of who we are, these qualities inside us are actually given in external form so that we can relate to it. Now, it's a very interesting thing what you're saying, because, you know, without that deity practice, it's really difficult to develop anything but the qualities that we know from our human lives, you know, which are not the qualities that we are. It's really a difficult thing. So best you take the word deity out of it and see which quality, call them qualities if you want, that's fine. And see which quality you relate to, which is really, really important. Because, you know, Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche, I love him. Oh, you know, I told you that biography, that stuff that I taught you on Khyentse Choki Lodro. Okay, I gave you that long namta of Khyentse Choki Lodro, and it was amazing. And then I stumbled upon the new incarnation. He's not a new incarnation. He's already like nearly 60 or whatever the case is, but I stumbled on, and what he said was that he went to one of his high teachers because he was really trained in the beginning, because he was a real amazing master. He was trained in the beginning. So he went to the master and he said, listen, I can't see that I, little me, could be an incarnation of Choki Lodro. He said, I have absolute admiration for Choki Lodro, but I think they made a terrible mistake in saying that I'm the Tulku incarnation of Choki Lodro. So you know what his guru said? He said, good, keep it that way. Okay, keep it that way. And you know why he said it? Because then there'll never be any ego. There'll be humility right through. You know, instead of saying, well, they've all put you on the throne and they're all doing it. He says it drives him mad. He's Bhutanese. He was born in Bhutan this time. He says, the Bhutanese come. He says, they put on his socks. They put on his shoes. They bow before him. They give him things all the time. He goes, please. He goes, I'm just an ordinary sentient being. What are they doing? He says, in the old days, in the Tibetan days, we didn't have his eminence, his holiness, his own thing. This is the Western way, okay? The Western way of very, you know, they'll ask questions, but they're very, you know, they need to do it in the proper way. And he said, this is what he said. He said, don't do it the Tibetan way. He said, some of you that have been in the Dharma for a very long time will go and do it the Tibetan way. He says, but your children won't. They won't relate to it. They won't like it. Well, he says, you know, what we were in Tibet, people are not going to relate to. They might have for a while felt shame. These poor people, they got invaded by China. He says, but your children will want different ways. And so in the center, they did all their prayers in English. You know, they did it all. They sang in English and everything. And we could also do that if we really wanted to. But I love it in the Tibetan. But then maybe I'm one of the culprits that says, let's do it Tibetan style, you know. But for me, without the Tibetan style, it loses that absolute value, you know. But I mean, really, I always say to people, do the Tibetan, stop the tape, read the English, and know what you're doing, and that's absolutely fine. Anyway, but Dzongsa said he said that the Buddha, I think might have mentioned this to you, but now I'm going to mention to you in terms of Vajrayana. He said the Buddha gave Cinderella teachings. He says, do you know what Cinderella teachings is? So they said, no. He said, it's stories. She wakes up in the pumpkin, you know, and then she goes off and then she meets her true love. He says, it's all stories. He said the Buddha taught in stories because when he looked at people, when he gained enlightenment, he said, they won't understand because this comes from another part of the mind, this great mind. He said, they won't understand, so I'm not going to teach them. I'm just going to go into the forest. Whereupon Brahma and all the gods came and said, oh, please, beloved Buddha, teach us, teach us. He said, so the Buddha had to teach Cinderella teachings. He said, what did he do? He said, this is samsara, this is nirvana, and this is suffering, okay? And we took it all in. He says, there's no samsara, there's no nirvana. And you know what James Lowe says? I've got to read you this because it's really very interesting. He said, we all experts at attachment. He says, Tantra makes use of our capacity for attachment to bring us liberation. And he says, but when Padmasambhava is the guru or synonymous with the guru, we call him, you are my unfailing refuge, we call him. He says, you know why he's your unfailing refuge? He says, because he doesn't exist. And actually, neither do you. You know, this is how it does it. You don't either when he gives you the blessing. We don't exist. He says, we merge with this, so to speak, Tatiana deity, and then we are returned to the ground of our true nature. We return to that. Now, I know what I'm saying today is very, very challenging. Nothing exists like that. Now, just think about it. If you were the ruler of the universe, what people might call God or whatever you want to call him, whatever him, her, it, force, whatever you want to call it. If you were the ruler of the universe, and if you actually looked at all the people in the world and you saw them suffering and you said, oh my goodness, they're seeing everything as impure, illusory seeing. They think they are the people that they are born into. They think that's who they are. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm the ruler. How am I going to get them to stop doing this? They separated themselves from the ground, from the true nature. Then they inhabited these bodies and believed these bodies of drama were their real selves. And now they're so far away. How am I going to bring them back? And how would he bring us back? This is what Vajrayana is. That's what tantric practice is. To bring us back to non-duality, not you there, me here, to bring us slowly and slowly back to truth. So if we look at Vajrayana, we can look at two words, birth and death. Now just listen to people talking on this planet. They'll say, we've got a new baby. Isn't it wonderful? This baby's just been born. It's too wonderful. So the baby was created by the bindus, the seeds coming together and everything. And then the baby started to develop and there's this beautiful picture of the baby. Now the baby comes out in the world and we say to the baby, this is your name. This is your status. This is your surname. This is the family that you belong to. This is who you are. Oh, says the baby, and he grows up, and that's who he is. Okay. Now, he goes so far away from who he is that how do we get him back? We need to purify birth and death. We need to purify them because actually there's no birth. And actually, there's no death. The one's the creation, and the one's the dissolution or the completion. And then that life's finished, and you go in. And then your little mind's going, who's here to wake me? Mommy, daddy, brother, sister, child, come quickly, come quickly. We're trying to go back. Meanwhile, that whole drama's already finished. It's sold out. It's gone. It's finished. And we're still waiting to go in. I know I'm being facetious today, but I'm from the influence of Dzongkar Khyentse Rinpoche and James Lowe and his guru. I'm doing the same to you. Why? Because it shakes you out of your complacency. If I just start teaching you on creation and dissolution of the Vajrayana, you're going to say, very nice, very nice. You're going to take a few notes. You might read them in a year's time or something like that. And that's it. Okay. So I'm shaking you out. I want you to see this drama. And what I want to tell all of you is that birth and death apply to every single phase of our life. Okay? To the beginning is the birth, the creation. To the end is the dissolution. When we go to sleep at night, that's death and birth. When we go to sleep at night, we dissolve absolutely everything that we are. We go to sleep and we wake up and we recreate what we had. So we dissolve into a different subtle dimension and then we wake up. When we do dreams, we do exactly the same thing. When we wake up in the day, we say, good morning, it's a new day. Or good morning, what a terrible day, whichever way we walk. We start creating who we are. And then we go into the drama. We created. And finally, we crash down and get out of that. So birth and death are there all the time. So think carefully of Vajrayana practice, of tantric practice. It's to be born, to create in a different way. But you never, ever forget that you come out of the ground, out of the essence, out of the emptiness, not empty, emptiness, into a form of some description. Now, either we can go into a pure form or a pure, but it's still illusionary. At the end of the practice, that pure form dissolves absolutely back into the essence, and then it recreates again in its pure essence. We go back into our lives, impure, illusionary vision. The practice takes us to pure illusionary vision, not impure. And eventually, if we, what they call, you realize the deity, it means you actually become that quality. Now, I know I'm not a visual person. I'm not a visualizing person. A lot of these masters who practiced in caves, then one day Tara would appear to them. They'd actually see a complete vision of Tara. Okay, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to see that, no matter how hard I practice. And I practiced Tara for many, many years, and I'll tell you about that. But I don't think I'm ever going to, because I can't visualize like that. But realizing the deity means when you embody the quality. And how do you embody the quality? Through the mantra recitation. Because the mantra recitation, you could say mantra recitation, or you could say using the energy differently. Just look at how we use energy in our day-to-day life. Look how many times we go, isn't this terrible? Isn't this awful? That's what we created. Okay, so the creation, we first start in the essence, and then we create. And then we use the seed syllable and the mantra, use of energy, and then we dissolve it to recreate it again. That's what the Vajrayana or the tantric practice is really all about, and I want to teach it. Now, what happened to me, you know, I told you, I'm cleaning out my drawers because I've got to get rid of stuff, and I've got to narrow everything down in my house. If you saw the amount of lectures that I have given that are written down, you'd actually weep, because you'd say, poor Melanie, how did she do all of this? Hundreds of talks of different levels. So what I'm doing now is I'm putting them all together, which is quite an interesting process, because like with the Vajrayana, I could go right back to the beginning of when I taught, right up to when I taught recently during COVID to now. And it's completely different, because you should get to a different level of understanding everything. So in my escapade, because I'm trying to put all these hundreds of files into 4 little boxes, okay, so that all my stuff is absolutely transportable wherever I have to go, because I'll never be able to do this at the last minute, even moving out of our house. It's taking me hours. And I satisfy my husband, because we watch something on Netflix while I'm doing my work. Okay, so I can actually do it at the same time and keep one eye on the Netflix and, do that. And then it kills 2 birds with 1 stone. But I came across this when I was doing it. I had forgotten all about this. Okay, it was in one of my files right at the bottom, and it's called Direct from Lama Yeshe Rinpoche's Teachings and Transmissions. Okay, so it went back to the year 2011. Okay, first of all, I remember sitting in Holy Isle. I went with him to Holy Isle, and we were sitting in Holy Isle, and one of us said, look at that calligraphy, that picture up there. This is not what the transmission was about, but look at that calligraphy. 1 or 2 of you might have even been with me, I don't know, of Tai Situ. Tai Situ wrote in the most beautiful calligraphy. And we asked Lama Yeshe, what does that actually mean? And he translated it very roughly, and I wrote it down. I've forgotten all about this. I found it, and it said, this is what Tai Situ said in this beautiful calligraphy. First, give up even the inclination for meditation. Interesting. First, give up even the inclination. Yeah, we all are saying, meditate, 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 meditate. He says, give up the inclination for meditation. Take it as you want. Second, give up even good thoughts. Just give it up. All the temporary things that we do, give it up. And then he said, then give up all boundaries. Whew. And then he says, the fruit will be the realization of limitlessness. Can I read it again? First, give up even the inclination for meditation. It's in a beautiful frame. Second, give up even good thoughts. Third, then give up all your boundaries. And fourth, the fruit will be the realization of limitlessness. And I thought, that's what Vajrayana is. How did Vajrayana come into being? And what happened? The Buddha first, as I told you, taught the Cinderella teaching, okay? And in the Cinderella teaching, he started with the Hinayana, or is often called the Shravakayana, okay? That is, if you look at all the practices, it's the saucer, the cup, and the tea. So the Hinayana is the saucer. It's the basis. With the Hinayana, you do it for yourself, and you've got all these rules and regulations. Shave your head, don't have contact with the opposite sex, don't eat meat, don't do this, don't do that, don't drink alcohol, don't have any of these things. You do all of that when you're in the Hinayana, okay? And why would he teach that when we look back at this thing and it says, the fruit will be the realization of limitlessness? I just hear a million rules and I'm ready to give up. You know, I hate people to say, do this, do this, do this. That's what I didn't like about Judaism. You can eat this, you can't do this, you can do this. This is when you pray, this is when you this is when you that. I really understand it because it was the Cinderella teachings. It was taking us completely away from that drama and being able to have all the rules and regulations which are very different to your original drama. Then from the Hinayana, it goes, and that's the saucer, it goes to the cup, Mahayana. And you know, Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche keeps saying, you know, everybody, you can get plenty of teaching and practices, millions of them, from the Hinayana and the Mahayana. You don't have to do the Vajrayana. Because he's actually saying, if you do the Vajrayana, realize how sacred it is. Realize what it is when you got empowerment from a guru. Realize all of those kind of things. Okay, so the Mahayana is the cup. It's when you start to go out of yourself and you start to want to help all sentient beings, the bodhicitta, okay? And you're still in the Mahayana, you still are doing rules if you want to, but now you are getting to a different level. And then the tea, the essence of what's in the cup and saucer, the essence, the tea, is the Vajrayana. Now, the Vajrayana in the Nyingma lineage has 9 different levels, okay? And in the 9 different levels, I want to do them, but I want to go back to Lama Yeshe's transmission because it's really important. I don't care how long it takes us to do this. I just want you to question me and cross-examine me. But I'll just say one more thing and then I'll throw it open. We'll go into the levels of the Vajrayana, right up to the Dzogchen level, which is liberation. The Hinayana, the bottom level, the cup, is called renunciation. So you renounce this life and you go into a monk's life and all the rules and all the regulations and everything. And you really become a good person, okay? And then the Mahayana is called the path of purification, the path of renunciation, the path of purification. It's where you actually start purifying. You're going to go from hatred to love, from anger to love. You're going to go from jealousy to understanding, and so on. You're going to purify all the negative emotions and start doing it for the sake of other people in the Mahayana, just in very brief. I mean, it's a huge subject, this. And then the Vajrayana is the path of transformation. So here, you are turning yourself out, upside down, inside out, and you are becoming what you need to do in this lifetime. And it's a very interesting thing because I think, who was it that told the story? It might have been Dzongsa Khyentse. He said there was, might have been him or another person that I listened to, said there was this monk, okay? And this monk, I mean, he had to transform himself. He was very busy doing his practice. So let's say he was doing some complex practice, Vajrayogini or one of them and everything. And he couldn't realize the deity, couldn't realize it. He couldn't integrate it in him. And he came before a big master, and the master said, you know, it's very funny when I look at you. All your lifetimes, you did such and such a practice. He said, you prepared amazingly. He says, and now you're doing this practice and you're not getting anywhere. He said, why don't you try the other old practice? So he took it very seriously and he went along and he tried the practice, and within a couple of weeks, he'd realized the deity. So what you need to understand, which I'm going to give you much more of, is that when we take practice, and for you, Tat, it is taking a quality that we need. Now, I know as soon as I came to understand the Vajrayana, and I jumped in the deep end from like day one, okay, day one. And I knew, I didn't think, I knew I had to do Tara practice in order to get somewhere. And when I saw Guru Rinpoche, I knew what it was about, that I needed to be Tara in order to get back to Guru Rinpoche, because Tara was swift, speedy, action accomplishment. She was young, she could do everything she needed to do, and I needed her. So day one, I was taught the practice, and I just went and did it like that. And I did it with an absolute passion until one day I said, okay, that's enough. And then I went and did lots of other practices. I don't know why, I don't know how, I don't know what these things are, but I still keep Tara in the background all the time. I do a short Tara all the time, just to keep remembering. And what I really relate to now is white Tara, because white Tara has got a completely different role to green Tara. And white Tara, for me, in these older years, is a much better quality for me to her healing, her long life ability, her wish-fulfilling wheel that she holds. I need to do those things for myself. So I still kept my green Tara, but I kind of changed to white Tara being what I'm needing mostly in my life. So I'll tell you more about it, but let's go back to Lama Yeshe, and then I really do want to throw it open. I'm doing much too much talking, and I haven't even started on the creation and completion that I want to teach you. Okay, but I can't help it. When it comes, it comes. Okay, going back to Taisitu Rinpoche's thing, give up your boundaries, give up your thinking, give up your meditation, just realize the limitlessness of your being. So important. I didn't even know I had this in the drawer. And Lama Yeshe Rinpoche, on that little holiday that I had with him on Holy Hour, oh my God, you don't know how he took me. The one day he took me and he took my face and he hit it 4 times on the face like that. Only now do I really realize what he was saying, because some of you may say, oh, he hit you. Didn't hit me sore. But he was going, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. And what he was doing was he went, faith, devotion, faith, devotion, faith, devotion, faith, devotion. He said it's all transmitted. And I remembered that whole thing on Holy Hour. The things he said to me, I don't want to get distracted and tell you some of the things he said to me now. But I mean, the things he said to me were absolutely unbelievable. And he had another disciple there called Joy, and that's her name. And Joy lives in the UK, and Joy walks around after him, completely different to me. She bows, she walks back and she bows to him all the time, and she answers him with a bow and everything. And I have just a regular relationship. She's a completely different person to me. But when I look back, amazing. And he said, you too, I've got both of you. You're in Africa and you're in the UK. He said, and both of you, she's got complete and total devotion and faith. She does really have total. She cured herself of cancer, 4th stage cancer, just by her faith and everything. And she teaches a little group of people. She's been teaching them for years and years and years, and she went through a divorce and all trauma, but she came out on top in the end. And he says, you go, you take faith and devotion, you do the practice. He says, and you understand that the lineage transmission is through me. He said, and you tell the people you teach that because the lineage transmission is through you, it goes straight to them. I read this all. It's 5 pages, okay, of all the things that he told me and what he did to me, and his instructions to me and everything. Then I spoke to him. he said, all problems and suffering are because of an ego, because of self. Once you see the illusion of self, you are past all that. And tomorrow night, I must tell them what he said about his really difficult childhood and how he got over it. When I do emotional intelligence, I'll do that. But he said, it's all about the heart. Intellect does not count. It's what you develop in devotion. And then he told me his story again. I'd heard his story, but he told me everything. I mean, I forgot about this. Okay, I forgot all about it. Can you believe it? But when I was going on the boat home from Holy Isle, I wrote everything he said down, everything. And so I've got it all, and I'll give it to you over time, because it's a lot. There's a lot in here. But I'm just telling you, this is a pure faith and devotion thing. And when you see the Guru, what was so interesting with Dzongkar Khyentse Rinpoche is that he was teaching in Sogyal Rinpoche's center, and there were a whole lot of incidents of sexual abuse and physical abuse in that center. And all he said was, when they asked him about it, and they don't spare their words, he just said, if it's from a Mahasiddhi, then it's out of compassion for your good. If it's from an ordinary sentient being, then he's an idiot. He didn't judge what this was. He just said, if it's from a sentient being, then he's an idiot. Okay, it's amazing. Okay, so I haven't even gotten onto the thing I was going to talk about, were the three aspects of essence, nature, and unlimited energy, and how it comes into the practice. But we haven't meditated, and I haven't given you enough chance. So let's have 5 minutes for your comments and questions, because I've given you a lot, and let's continue this next time, because there's so much I want to say. And I don't know why I come like a fountain when I'm teaching. This morning, I actually thought to myself, what do you want to say? You've got a few jotted notes down. What do you want to say? And then I sit here and I can feel it coming like a fountain through me, and I can't stop it in any way. What does anyone want to say or comment or ask, or just give me your feedback, because I'm giving you some quite revolutionary things about the practice. Yes, Gail, tell me. Talk to me.
Yeah, I love it when you just sprout out your knowledge. It's just so amazing. It really does us all good, because everything actually sort of comes from your heart. Nothing's sort of practiced, and that's how it should be. That's what we should be ourselves. And you are showing your true nature and helping us, because you're so passionate about it. I want to be passionate like you. I really do. I think it's what we need.
Well, that's wonderful, Gail. And you know what? The reason I don't teach like this all the time, I'll tell you my reason, because I actually, on most of the subjects, have lots of opinions, but I say to myself, you know, the one thing which is so important when I listen to Dzongkar Khyentse, who's crazy, and he gives these crazy examples and stuff. He is the most amazing master. And you can all watch him on YouTube. He's really, really amazing. But you know what? What I feel is how sacred some of this teaching is. And I never want to make a mistake. Do you know what I mean? I never, ever in this life, if I teach, and Lama Yeshe said that to me, he didn't say it in those words, but he said to me, you know, I know from what he said to me, that if I make any mistakes, in other words, if I taint the Dharma in any conceivable way, I am in big trouble. Okay. And also, that's one thing. I mean, I've already been in big trouble in the past. And now this lifetime, Lama Yeshe Rinpoche has been rooting for me all the time. You know, when I was teaching at the beginning, when I came back from Taisitu Rinpoche after the long retreat, and he'd given me all these Dzogchen things. And when I said to him, can I do them? And he said to me, Alpum, which is the name of his monastery, is for everything. It's a combination of any practices that you want. It's not just Mahamudra, it's everything. Okay. And I came back, and one of the top teachers really, really, really critically evaluated me. I really did it from my heart and everything. And Lama Yeshe Rinpoche had to really, in his own way, defend me. Okay, because there was no ways I could have defended myself. I could just do what I had to do. And you know, it was so interesting because Lama Yeshe Rinpoche had the opportunity to go to the Karmapa who took care of this. And when Lama Yeshe was giving me this, he said, the Karmapa in all his glory is there, and I am his. And he says, and you are mine, not in a possessive sense, you know, but in the lineage sense. And he says to me, you take that and go through with that, you know, which is really an important point. It's really an important point. So for me, Gail, that's why I always take all the beautiful masters and I quote them and I say them. But I can see at night, people are too tired. They can't, you know, they can't absorb it. So I just have to give it from my heart. But I hope that it's always correct. It's very important for the Dharma to be correctly given, never a mistake. And that's why in the end, you know, I always say any mistakes that I might have made, I really apologize for. That's why you do the 100-syllable mantra, to apologize for any mistakes, because it's really an important thing and it's a big responsibility. It doesn't matter if you're teaching 500 people or one person. It's always a responsibility to bring the Dharma through correctly. But the truth of the Dharma is without boundaries. It's limitless. And we can't get there until we can just open up and surrender to that Buddha nature. You know what I mean? Because otherwise we're always going to be analyzing and attaching and all of that kind of thing, you know? Right. They're nodding, my two little ones in here. Okay. So thank you for that. And I really try, but I'm always trying to make it interesting and varied and give you a lot of things. But this Vajrayana is such a vast, most exquisite subject. And, you know, I can just give it the best way I can. Anyone else? Anyone want to say or do anything or ask anything or say anything or how it affects them? I'm so happy if you tell me how it affects you. And you, Karen, are decidedly quiet today. And she knows this very, very well because she's lived a crazy life. She knows.
No, I'm quiet because I'm listening. It's like I think I'm very much, I know when you talk about lineage, I actually almost feel guilty for being here because I know my lineage is Nyingma, just like I know Dzogchen. So, and I do have an affinity with Lama Yeshe's actually come in my meditation, strangely enough.
You know,
a few times, which is weird. So a lot of what you're saying is not weird. Yeah, so this is nice for me. I don't like the word nice. I love your passion. That's what keeps me here. Just, it goes straight into my heart.
Too beautiful. And you know, let me tell you something interesting. Let me tell you something interesting. That I myself have this unbelievable connection to the Nyingma lineage. And I told Taisitu Rinpoche, I have this unbelievable connection to the Nyingma lineage. He said, there's no difference. Now, let me tell you something, that the Kaju lineage where I was taken into, actually this child who's sitting here, when we were doing this and that and muddling and all kinds of spiritual things, and one day she said to me, there's a real live llama, come and take refuge. Okay, and so I took refuge. I mean, I didn't even know what refuge was, you know. I didn't understand anything. I just went, and there was Akong Rinpoche, you know, and I took refuge with him. As the years went by, I understood perfectly, because the Kaju lineage is to discipline you and clean you. Okay, and I was a wild yogini, okay, and the Kaju lineage disciplined me like anything, but where I belong is for sure in the Dzogchen. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense. When Dajjam Rinpoche says to me, and the Dzogchen's in the Vajrayana, but it's right up to self-liberation, not transformation anymore. And so for me, it's absolutely essential that Kaju lineage was given to me so that I would be disciplined, cleaned, and okay to be able to give more crazy wisdom teaching, you know. And that was my role. So it was really important. And, you know, Lama Yeshe Rinpoche is he's no, what can I say, set being that's with rules and regulations. He's the most unruled regulation person you've ever come across. I mean, when I went to him, when I was doing Mahamudra in the beginning, and I went to him and I said, you don't understand. He says we've got to watch a pebble for hours and hours and hours, and then we've got to watch a stick for hours and hours. I said to him, I was screaming. I said, I can't do it. It drives me mad. You know what he said to me? Instead of saying, well, you have to, and you have to train your mind, he says, neither can I. That's what he said. Neither can I. He said, just do what you can do and be where you need to be and just do as much as you can. And that's what I did when I went on the Mahamudra path. But clearly, when I went to Taisitu Rinpoche, he said to me, Palpum means all lineages, all practices. And I said to him, will you teach the Dzogchen openly? He said, well, I can't really do that. He said, I tell you what, I'll do a course, he said, called Mahamudra, Madhyamika, and Dzogchen, Mahaati. And I went to India for that. And he did it of the three, because he's done all the Dzogchen training and all the Dzogchen practice, but he is a master who has to teach, you know, another way. So he teaches very well another way. So actually, it's all the same. It's all the same. And for me, I will always look for a Nyingma lineage. I'll always look for those masters. If you look on my shelf, it's all those masters that I'm studying and reading. So it is what it is. But I'm very grateful that the Kaju lineage took me in, a real rebel, and they cared for me very greatly and gave me a platform to do what I needed to do in this life. And I'm always remain grateful, you know.
Mel, just to, would you yourself know, but for the others there, that most of the masters, Adilga, Kienzi,
all of them.
Yeah, most of them are of both lineages.
Yeah.
The Rima, you know, but besides that, but I'm saying they are definitely, most of them. Yeah. Like Tulku Urgent, I mean, that I also study. I mean,
also he studied under the
Kaju
lineage and under this, you know, the Dzogchen
they
lineage.
both, yeah.
Definitely. So that's
Okay.
good. So let's just do
So
a little.
thank you.
No, I thank you for being here because I love and I like your feedback because I think it's really important for me. So let's just do a little meditation.
Okay.
Just breathe in and breathe out onto this precious, beautiful moment. So precious. We can't go back to the past. It's over. We carry something of the past in us. We can't go to the future because the future hasn't been made. And in the present, we've got to stop those fingers from grasping onto all our thoughts, our feelings, our situations, absolutely everything. We just let it all be. The present is important, but in half a second, the present will already be the past. So be in the present, but no grasping, no attachment, no analysis, none of that. Just take that beautiful poem of Paisitu in his calligraphy in a beautiful frame, and let's go through it in your meditation. First, give up even the inclination for meditation. Take your meditation into your life. Pleasant, wakeful, aware, in touch. It doesn't have to be on the cushion. It must be all day, looking and having insight into everything and realizing the drama of this life, temporary drama, staged on your karmic imprints. They all are non-existent. Just on your relative life are they there. Give up even good thoughts. As the thoughts come, be the observer, the old person on a bench, just watching the thoughts, like a train with the scenery, just letting it all be. Give it up. Open your hands. Let it be free. And give up all boundaries. Actually see how many boundaries you have in your life. A boundary for everything. For your children, for your grandchildren, for your gardens, for your actions, for your work. Absolutely everything is boundaried by your mind. Just take a scissors and cut open all the boundaries and merge with the spaciousness, the openness, beautiful blue sky, the never-ending possibility, the emptiness. And the fruit will be the realization of limitlessness. Limitless is defined. If you're limitless, then you're just taking yourself from one zone into a broader zone. If you're limitlessness, the ness is full of possibilities. So in the creation, we create, and then we go through using the energy and we dissolve it into completion to recreate again. the creation is limitless, limitlessness, great possibility of endless creation, pure but illusory creation, coming back into the emptiness. Open your heart, open your meditation, open every part of your being into limitlessness. So I will stay if anybody wants to ask or question or comment with pleasure. But there's a lot here and there's a lot to discuss. There's a lot of stuff in the Vajrayana to really understand from your heart. So let's not rush. And I think the people that are here are the people that need to be here. And let us just dedicate Bern to all sentient beings, to all the people who are suffering, to all the people who are going through poverty and hunger and wars and destruction and absolutely everything, and illness and cholera and no water, no electricity and everything. We dedicate all these beautiful teachings to all of these beings. May they see that this is a temporary, transient state, that it will all dissolve back into the limitless emptiness, and that we can really get through this and into the next possibility. Through this merit, may we achieve all-seeing Buddhahood, and thereafter, once all harmful enemies have been defeated, may all beings be liberated from the ocean of existence, stirred by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Sonamdiye tamche zibane topne nepe dranam kamshene jegana chibala trupaye sipe sole dua dro warsho.